Chapter 1396, Lei Dong. 1396 Lei Dong. Ling Han smiled faintly, and asked, "What are you willing to trade for it?" The man hesitated slightly, and replied, 100 million true origin stones. Everyone almost passed out. 100 million true origin stones. That was really an astonishing amount of wealth. The overall level of cultivation of Joint Peace Planet was lower than the Cloud Apex planets, not merely because of the cultivation techniques here, but also because of the issue of the natural environment. In this place, the production of true origin stones was obviously much smaller. Hence, if 100 million true origin stones on Cloud Apex Planet was considered very wealthy, then it would be considered supremely wealthy in this place. Everyone else was dumbfounded. Only heavenly body tier elites would have such massive wealth to offer a price of 100 million true origin stones at the very beginning. Could it be that that young man was really so strong? Otherwise, what need was there for Lei Dong to use true origin stones to trade for the treasure? He could directly resort to force to snatch the treasure. In the cultivation world, using one's overwhelming power was not called snatching, but a matter of course. If you were not strong enough, then you were not qualified to possess the treasure. Is this the floating divine sword, Lei Dong, Lord Lei? Precisely. I never thought that even Lord Lei would be tempted by this treasure. Hiss, it must be extraordinary. He must have just happened to pass by coincidentally, right? Otherwise, how would that minor character have managed to obtain it? True. Everyone was whispering among themselves, and had called out the name of this supreme elite of the heavenly body tier. Not enough. Ling Han shook his head. Though he did not know the true use of this sword, it was definitely worth more than 100 million true origin stones. Everyone inhaled sharply. 100 million true origin stones are still not enough. You're asking for too much, aren't you? A sliver of displeasure also appeared on Lei Dong's face. On Joint Peace Planet, 100 million true origin stones was definitely an astronomical number, and was just about his entire savings. If it was not for the fact that he could tell Ling Han was also in the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, he would definitely not be offering a price, but rather resorting to forcibly snatching the sword. However, precisely because Ling Han was equal in cultivation level to him, he did not wish to easily provoke him, either. Those that had reached a height like them naturally would not start a fight easily with another of the same cultivation level, as that would implicate too much. He muttered irresolutely, and asked, "Dare I ask how I may address you and where have you come from?" There were only that many supreme elites of the heavenly body tier on the whole Joint Peace Planet. Though some of them lived in isolation and did not appear in public, those were all old monsters that had cultivated for innumerable millions of years. How could they possibly be this young? His life essence shot up into the skies. This was definitely a young king tier that was no more than 500 years old. This caused him to be wary. Being able to advance into the heavenly body tier before reaching 500 years old was too frightening. Who knew, he might have some great abilities that could not be imagined. Ling Han smiled lightly, and asked, "Before you ask others, should you not introduce yourself first?" Such nerve. The 10 tigers of the Wang clan were all shocked. No wonder Ling Han dared to kill a member of their Wang clan. Fuck. He dared to speak so frankly even with a supreme elite of the heavenly body tier. Yet Lei Dong did not look angry at all. He knew Ling Han's cultivation level, so he would naturally not put on any airs. "I am Lei Dong, from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire." He had purposely spoken the words Eternity Sky Majestic Empire because he thought that Ling Han could not possibly be from the Majestic Empire. Otherwise, if such a young heavenly body tier had appeared in the Majestic Empire, he would definitely have heard about it. Ling Han smiled faintly. Ling Han, from the Great Ling Empire. Great Ling Empire? Lei Dong looked blank. Where was that? Yi, the Great Ling Empire, I know that. Someone suddenly slapped a hand in realization on his thigh. This is a small nation subordinate to the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire. It should have come through opening the sky over 20 years ago. Pu. Lei Dong immediately spluttered in spite of himself. What joke was he playing? He had come by opening the sky 20 over years ago, Then wouldn't that mean that Ling Han had reached heavenly body tier all the way from shattering void tier in that little amount of time? That's got to be a lie. You belong to the chaotic star's majestic empire? Lei Dong asked darkly. That was what he thought. Ling Han shrugged, and replied, if you want to think that way, you may do so. The Empress would definitely be his in future, so it was no mistake to say that he belonged to the chaotic star's majestic empire, either. Sir, you've gone too far. Lei Dong's expression was written all over with as expected. A person of the chaotic star's majestic empire actually dared to come here, and even dared to snatch a treasure of the Eternity Sky majestic empire? Had he even taken the elites of the Eternity Sky majestic empire to heart? Have I? Ling Han smiled slightly, incredibly nonchalant. Finally, Lei Dong's fighting spirit was incited. Firstly, this was an elite from an opposing nation who had now barged here. Going by reason, since he had encountered such a person, even if there was no treasure involved, he had to make a move to suppress him as well. Otherwise, it would be a loss of national pride. Secondly, with the treasure added into the equation, he had even more of a reason to make a move. Thirdly, since Ling Han was a member of the chaotic star's majestic empire, he would not be able to draw on power of the nation here, but he could, and it could give him an additional boost of a star of battle prowess. For elites like them, how could they afford the gap of a star of battle prowess? Thus, his confidence was soaring, and he decided to make a move. Sir, since you dare come to our empire, you must bear the consequences. He brazenly moved, two heavenly bodies appearing behind him. Both of them were the same size. This meant, he had reached the peak stage of the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Boom, his hand turned into a black demonic claw that rolled out towards Ling Han. The shock wave swept past, and it was strong enough to kill Chen Ruijing and the others. This was what heavenly body tier was, they possessed absolutely overwhelming strength. Ling Han pointed a finger, completely indifferent. Pu, this demonic claw instantly shattered. Origin power surged like a mad wave, forcibly destroying the top of the tea house. The remaining power did not decrease. Peng, 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 it razed the entire town, and only then did it settle. Thankfully, this was only the remaining shock wave after the direct impact. Though innumerable buildings had been destroyed, it did not possess much destructive power against living beings. Those that had reached the immortal level fortunately survived the disaster, but there were still countless casualties and injuries among those below immortal level. This was also why heavenly body tiers had to fight in midair, their destructive power was too frightening. Lei Dong was completely unconcerned. In his eyes, even those in the sun-moon tier were ants, so how could he possibly care about the life and death of mere mortals? He appeared solemn. The other's strength had exceeded his expectations slightly, he had so easily dispelled his attack. And the 10 tigers of the Wang clan had all turned pale with fear. They did not know how strong Ling Han was, but he was capable of receiving the strike of a supreme elite of the heavenly body tier. What did that signify? That Ling Han was really in the heavenly body tier. They actually dared seek vengeance from this kind of elite. That would be like an old man committing suicide, too tired of living. Lei Dong drew his sword. He was named the Floating Divine Sword, so his strength was naturally in swordsmanship. The moment he drew his sword, fragrance would float far and wide. Death would happen without any signs in advance. Ling Han was still sitting calmly as he had been. He had even killed someone in the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, so he really did not take Lei Dong to heart. Let us battle in the skies, Lei Dong declared darkly. It was an exchange of blows with an elite from an enemy empire, after all. If their battle caused too much death and destruction, it was inevitable that his reputation would be damaged. The hearts of the people would abandon him, and the power of the nation would become poison to him. As you like, Ling Han replied calmly. The two of them shot up into the skies, and confronted each other 30 kilometers in the air. Fragrance floats 10,000 miles, the sword leaving no mark. Lei Dong drew his sword. Shua, the sword struck, turning into countless flashes of sword light, and forming a sword formation that pushed towards Ling Han. This sword light was earth-shattering, and there was nowhere to dodge. Take a strike from me as well. Ling Han using his fingers like he would a sword, and swiped forwards. Lightning sword technique, the sword of heaven's might. It was very simple, yet brought with it a supreme aggression, enough to suppress all else. Chapter 1397 Heaven Execution Order. Chapter 1397 Heaven Execution Order. Compared with Lei Dong's sword light that filled the skies, Ling Han had only delivered a single flash of sword light, which appeared very frail. Yet it was this solitary flash of sword light that seemed like the king among swords, possessing an aura of invincibility. In front of my might of King Tyr, all others, no matter how many their number were, would only be overwhelmed. The attack swept over, and all the skies paled. Lei Dong showed an expression of deep astonishment. Previously, though Ling Han had easily dispelled his attack, he had only appeared slightly more serious because that was also an attack he had delivered casually. But this strike was different. He had already used an ultimate move, but Ling Han had still easily dispelled it. This caused a tempest of shock to rise up in his heart. How is he so powerful? He took in a deep breath, and the totem of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire suddenly appeared above his head. In the end, he had still drawn on power of the nation. Wang, the totem opened its eyes, focusing in on Ling Han. It seemed to possess a life of its own. That pair of eyes exuded a frightening might as if merely its gaze was sufficient to suppress everything. Ling Han knew that this was not merely the totem, but also possessed the pressure that came from the Eternity Sky Emperor himself. All lands under the heavens belonged to the imperial authority. As long as the nation's leader willed it, he could check on any place inside the territory of his empire through the totem, and could even attack through the totem. Of course, any attack like that would not reach the strongest it could be. When a heavenly body tier elite wanted to draw on power of the nation, it was naturally a huge matter. Thus, the Eternity Sky Emperor was alerted at the first instant, cast his divine sense here, and saw Ling Han through the totem. Ling Han was standing proudly. So what if he was in the consummate level of the heavenly body tier? Presently, it was indeed very difficult for him to fight such a character, but if he was no match for him, he could always run, couldn't he? As long as he was given a little more time, killing an elite of consummate level would be the same like killing a chicken or a dog to him. Ling Han looked coldly at the totem. It could be considered a body doppelganger of the Eternity Sky Emperor. When the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had invaded previously just to obtain the 9 Demons Sword, causing countless bloodshed and death, this also caused Ling Han to be filled with killing intent towards the Eternity Sky Emperor. Lei Dong drew on power of the nation, and his power instantly increased greatly. This boost of a single star of battle prowess meant being 10 times stronger. Lei Dong gave a battle cry, and delivered a slash once more with his sword. The cold sword light lit up the whole sky, causing even the sun itself to darken. Probably 1/10 of the territory of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire could see this flash of sword light. The sword moves the mountains and rivers, he roared, delivering this sword strike at Ling Han. The sword light turned into rain, and there was nowhere that Ling Han could dodge in this world. Yet Ling Han still merely used a single finger. The lightning sword technique shot out, and he was the true king of swords. Peng, 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 peng. The shower of swords that filled the skies all evaporated, but this sword light that Ling Han had flicked out was still slicing out towards Lei Dong. Its might had not decreased in the slightest. What? Lei Dong paled in shock. How could Ling Han possibly be so powerful? He forcibly lifted his sword to parry, but when the sword light swept over him, his whole person was forced backwards. He had been sent flying over 100 miles before he finally stopped. Wang, right at this moment, the totem in the skies suddenly moved, and a large hand stretched out from within and grabbed out at Ling Han. The Eternity Sky Emperor moved. Ling Han was disdainful, and greeted the incoming strike with a punch. Eternity Sky Emperor, if you had come personally, you would still have been qualified to fight me. But if you want to take me down with merely the power of the totem, that could only happen in your dreams. Peng, the punch landed. The large hand was first, and instantly exploded into smithereens. Subsequently, the totem also crumbled. However, the totem in the skies was merely a shadowy image, so even if it crumbled, it was fine. Very quickly, it reappeared once more. The Eternity Sky Emperor's face appeared through the totem. He stared menacingly at Ling Han as if wanting to clearly see his face. After a long while, he declared, "By my imperial command, the heaven execution order is placed on Ling Han." Hong, this was not merely said to Ling Han, but was broadcast to the whole Eternity Sky Majestic Empire through the totem. Hiss, at this instant, there was initially a dead silence in the territory of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, followed by a great commotion. The Heaven Execution Order. In the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, there were a total of 3 types of execution orders, which were respectively Heaven, Earth, and Mortal, corresponding to different types of elites. If the Mortal Execution Order was issued, all Mountain River tier cultivators in the Majestic Empire would be mobilized. They had to move if they encountered the person that had been issued the execution order, or they would be seen as traitors to the Majestic Empire. When the Earth Execution Order was issued, all elites of the Sun Moon tier would have to move, and if it was the Heaven Execution Order, then even heavenly body tiers would have to leave everything else and hunt down and kill this person. In the history of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, how many years had it been since the Heaven Execution Order had been issued? In that moment, Ling Han's name and appearance were broadcast through the whole Eternity Sky Majestic Empire through the totem. All heavenly body tier elites left whatever they had been doing at the time. Even those that had been cultivating in isolation immediately called a stop to their cultivation. Only the old monsters in the consummate level of the heavenly body tier could ignore the Heaven Execution Order. Their status was already outstanding enough that they could ignore the imperial authority. But how would others dare to do the same? All of a sudden, at least 50 heavenly body tier elites moved. This was more or less the full power of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. Ha 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 ha. Lei Dong laughed loudly. I really never thought that His Majesty would actually issue the Heaven Execution Order for you. Ling Han, why don't you quickly scramble back to the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire with your tail between your legs? However, you would have to leave behind that wooden sword for me. Otherwise, I will do my utter best to detain you so that you would be besieged on all sides. No matter how powerful your abilities are, your only fate would be death. Ling Han shook his head and said, if you stop me, you will definitely die. Furthermore, you are completely unqualified to stop me. I could kill you with a single move. Lei Dong was so furious he laughed. Ling Han actually said that he could be killed with a single move. Where had his confidence come from? Previously, the abilities that Ling Han had shown were indeed very strong, but it had definitely not reached the extent that could destroy the heavens and earth. Fine then. I really want to see how you can kill me with a single move. Pu. A human head soared into the skies. Lei Dong's head danced in the air. He still dared not believe it. He could see Ling Han was wielding a divine sword, the sword's blade not having the slightest bit of blood, and his headless body was presently falling down from the skies. It really was only a single move. He did not even manage to see how Ling Han had attacked with his sword. He merely felt a frightening pressure attack him, and his reaction speed had slowed slightly. Disregarding his will, he had not moved to dodge when he should have, and his defenses were completely ineffective as well. Boom, a destructive murderous aura forged into his murderous aura, and Lei Dong lost all his senses, heading towards death. Ling Han descended from the skies with a single step. At this moment, Lei Dong's body and head fell onto the ground. Peng, peng. Even when a heavenly body tier elite died, he still possessed terrifying might. The impact of his body and head caused the ground to shake violently as if an earthquake was happening. Everyone's eyes were popping out in their extreme shock. Though they were not able to fly, they could clearly see the battle commencing in the skies, including the interference of the Eternity Sky Emperor through the totem as well as the issuing of the Heaven Execution Order. Then, Ling Han suddenly showed his might, and killed Lei Dong with a single strike. On Joint Peace Planet, heavenly body tier were the supreme rulers, and the huge matter of a ruler dying would only happen in who knew how many years, and now it actually happened right in front of their eyes. With a single sword strike. Hiss, what kind of freak was this? The 10 tigers of the Wang clan were scared witless. They really wanted to faint. Chapter 1398 Yield. 1398 Yield. Ling Han stood proudly, and said, "If there is anyone who wants to kill me, just come. I will be here for half a day's time." He still had to wait for Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and Ding Ping, so he temporarily would not be able to leave. All the people of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire felt their faces twitching. A great many felt incredibly angered. An elite from an opposing nation came into their territory and still dared to strut around boldly like this. But there were also some who admired Ling Han. The Eternity Sky Emperor had already issued the Heaven Execution Order, yet Ling Han actually dared to still stay here. He was really courageous. After a day had passed, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and Ding Ping came back one after the other. One had broken through to the Heavenly Body tier, whereas the other had advanced into the Sun Moon tier, which added two powerful helpers to Ling Han's side. "Let's go." They moved to leave, and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and Ding Ping very soon found out that their group was being hunted down. Naturally, they were uncaring of the fact too. Putting aside the fact that they still had the military strength of two Heavenly Body tiers on their side, if each of them threw out a handful of flying fire pills, that was enough to cause great trouble for their pursuers. They left calmly, and did not deliberately rush on their way. That was because they still had a good number that were still in the Mountain River tier, so their speed naturally could not possibly be too fast. Thus, after only a single day, a Heavenly Body tier elite had caught up with them. This was an elite in the low extreme of the Heavenly Body tier. He was the first to catch up to them, not because his speed was the fastest, but rather because he just happened to be in the vicinity. Hence, he was the first to catch up to them. He did not dare make a move. Putting aside the fact that the opposing side had two great Heavenly Body tier elites, one of them was in the medium extreme, much stronger than him. How could he dare to make a move? This was the smart move. If he knew that Lei Dong, who was at the peak stage of the medium extreme of the Heavenly Body tier, had been killed with a single strike from Ling Han, he would definitely be extremely glad that he had made this choice. Another half a day later, more Heavenly Body tier elites had arrived. One of them was much stronger than the rest, and was in the early stage of the high extreme. Hence, the moment he appeared, he moved. He stretched out a large hand that formed into a gigantic demonic palm that could suppress the heaven and earth with his strength. Too bad. Ling Han had already killed an elite of the high extreme of the Heavenly Body tier before, so how could he possibly shrink back? Wielding his sword, he moved. The heaven's might showed itself, and he killed this elite with his sword in a few moves. He cast an eye at where another Heavenly Body tier elite was, and then descended from the skies. He did not move further. That Heavenly Body tier elite was completely ashen with fear. That was an existence of the high extreme of the Heavenly Body tier. Though he had just advanced into this level, he was a whole minor tier superior to Ling Han. With a gap of 4 stars and power of the nation, he still was no match for Ling Han. His heart beat fiercely. Thankfully, Ling Han had not moved against him, or his death would have been definite. Gritting his teeth, he turned and left. This kind of freak was absolutely no one he could match. In any case, he had already come and done his best. It was impossible that he could hunt down someone and lose his life for it in the process. A day later, more elites appeared. This time, there was someone in the peak stage of the high extreme of the Heavenly Body tier, and he was also a 3-star genius. He battled fiercely with Ling Han. This time, under the condition that Ling Han did not use the Tide of the Ages, he could only fight him to a tie. As time was drawn out, more Heavenly Body tier elites arrived, and joined in the battle. Ling Han was unafraid. His physique was invincible, and no matter how many elites of this degree came, he did not fear them. When this number had reached as many as 7, Ling Han finally decided to use a deadly move. The old ginseng immediately slapped a hand on the table, and said, "You see that we are foreigners and think that we are easily pushed around, is it? Go, call your shopkeeper here. Grandpa Ginseng will burst his balls." Ling Han did not speak, but he did not stop the old ginseng, either. Since he did not stop him, it was equivalent to a tacit agreement and indulgence. When the old ginseng saw this, he was naturally filled with confidence. In this galaxy, Ling Han might not be considered invincible, but there was really no need for him to fear anyone. The waiter was very gloomy. A ginseng actually pointed a finger at his nose and scolded him. If Ling Han and the others were not here, he really would want to put this precious ginseng in the pot and make a stew out of it. But now he could only be humble, and said, I am really sorry, everyone. How about this? The restaurant will exempt your bill completely, consider it as an apology from us. He had received instructions. If they could solve this matter by exempting the bill for one table, that was naturally the best. However, they could also exempt the bill for both tables when there was no other alternative. What was most important was the private room. It definitely had to be freed. Those two esteemed guests were too high in status, and could not be offended in the slightest. Chapter 1399 Meeting Xiong Chengyun Again. 1399 Meeting Xiong Chengyun Again. The waiter endlessly apologized, but at the same time also threatened them indistinctly. He emphasized how noble the two esteemed guests were in status, and that they were definitely people that Ling Han and his group could not afford to offend. The old ginseng, rabbit, and the others were not the type to take a loss, and added with the fact that Jiang Yefeng and the others were also young and rash, they naturally would not easily accept being chased out. They all smacked the table in challenge, exclaiming they wanted to see who these two people were and see how truly esteemed they were. Is the room still not cleared yet? A voice rang out, containing incredible arrogance. It sounded familiar. A thought suddenly flashed in Ling Han's heart. Wasn't this Xiong Chengyun? Previously, when he had come through opening the sky, it was Xiong Chengyun who had come by the will of the left minister and taken the great Ling Empire in as one of the subordinate nations under the chaotic star's majestic empire. At the beginning, their relations were not too bad, but as Ling Han gradually became more and more successful, Xiong Chengyun felt jealous of his success, and the two of them naturally became distant. Especially when it was after the left minister warned Ling Han not to be too close with Li Weiwei. Xiong Chengyun naturally followed the footsteps of the left minister closely, and completely drew a clear dividing line between himself and Ling Han as if they were absolute strangers. Subsequently, Ling Han went to Flying Cloud Planet, and did not see Xiong Chengyun again. So many years had passed since their separation. Actually, it had not been that many years. In the immortal realm, the time of more than 10 years would pass like the blink of an eye, so Xiong Chengyun naturally would not change that much. As a popular person at the side of the left minister, especially when the two ministers had full control of the imperial court at present, Xiong Chengyun's self-confidence was naturally booming. Lord Xiong, please wait for a moment. I will immediately clear the private room. The waiter was covered in cold sweat. At present, he could offend anyone but Xiong Chengyun. Putting aside the fact that he was just a minor character, even Sun Moon tier-level forces would collapse easily if Xiong Chengyun spoke badly of them in front of the left minister. Humph, what kind of people are they to actually procrastinate so much? How insolent! Another voice rang out. They saw that a young man had barged in. He had just broken through to the mountain river tier, but the arrogance in his expression was very heavy, as if the heavens were the boss and he was the second most powerful after the heavens themselves. He saw that there were not just humans inside the private room, there was also a rabbit and a ginseng that were sitting high up like lords. Involuntarily, a muscle twitched in his cheek. Demonic beasts were commonly seen, but this was a little beyond common sense to see them act so boldly in the imperial capital of human cultivators like this. Furthermore, the three women here were all very beautiful. One was sweet and naive, one was mature and shapely, and the last was even more attractive. She was as beautiful as a fairy, her beauty incomparable. She was practically like the legendary empress, who could cause one to lose his spirit with a single look. But the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was not Empress Luanxing, after all. Thus, the young man soon came back to himself, and proudly asked, "Who are you all?" As he spoke, Xiong Chengyun had also walked into the private room, but due to the angle he was standing at, he did not see Ling Han. Furthermore, because Ling Han's cultivation level was too high, his aura reserved, he completely could not tell how strong Ling Han was. Of course, no matter how hard he thought, he could not possibly think that this was Ling Han, and that he had furthermore advanced into the heavenly body tier. He could easily send even the Lord Left Minister flying with a single smack. His bearing was arrogant. Though there was not the slightest bit of change in his official position, the left minister presently had control of half the authority of the empire, so his status naturally increased innumerable times, and he appeared even more arrogant and prouder. He could obviously tell that there were a few people here whose auras had unfathomable depths, yet he still did not take them to heart. There were only those few heavenly body tiers in the entire chaotic star's majestic empire, so these few people definitely could not be such types of elites. At most, they should only be in the sun-moon tier. If they were only in the sun-moon tier, what did he have to fear? Not only did he not fear them, this kind of existence would even have to turn around to curry his favor. For example, the young man that was treating him to wine today was the prodigy of the Lu clan, a sun-moon tier level force, Lu Yujing. He was playing the matchmaker this time, and there was an intention to betroth the beloved daughter of the Lu clan to him. It should be known that this beloved daughter of the Lu clan had been very much in the limelight these few years, and had become one of the four great beauties of the imperial capital, replacing Li Weiwei and the others who asked them to have advanced into the mountain river tier. The new generation would replace the older generation. It had always been that way in history. At first, Xiong Chengyun had some designs on Li Weiwei, but he had self-awareness. In the eyes of the left minister, he was only a useful, obedient dog. How could he be qualified to marry Li Weiwei? Thus, he had long since given up, and had also seen that beloved daughter of the Lu clan before. She was indeed enchantingly beautiful, definitely not inferior to Li Weiwei. Furthermore, the Lu clan also had an ancestor in the consummate level of the sun-moon tier, so it could be considered a first-rate clan. If he could become the son-in-law of the Lu clan, there would be many gains for Xiong Chengyun. Additionally, the Lu clan could also forge a good relationship with the left minister through him. Thus, the two sides naturally hit it off. At present, Xiong Chengyun's pride had already soared to the skies. As long as it was not the right minister or the 7 generals, he feared no one. Even if the ancestor in the consummate level of the sun-moon tier came, he still dared to point at the former's nose and scold him. Thus, he simply allowed Lu Yujing to act out. Moreover, he was also very displeased himself. A very popular person by the side of the left minister himself had come for some wine, and his request to have a private room had actually been delayed for so long. What was left of his pride? The old ginseng slapped the table and said, "Fuck you." Lu Yujing was furious. Why was this treasured ginseng such a ruffian? If he did not cook it and devour it, it would not be enough to vent his fury. You can all get lost, but you must leave this treasured ginseng behind. We want to cook it into a stew, he declared malevolently. Furthermore, he was indeed tempted as well. A treasured ginseng that had gained its own consciousness could cultivate on its own, so its medicinal effects would be far stronger than those of other godly medicines in the same level. It could even be used to extend one's lifespan. For cultivators, there was nothing more important than lifespan. A longer life meant that the chances of ascending to a higher peak in the path of cultivation would be higher. You actually want to eat your grandpa ginseng, you're still 100,000 years too early. It's more likely you'd be drinking my feet washing water. The old ginseng jumped onto Ding Ping's shoulder, and commanded, "Brat Ding, go." He knew that Ding Ping was the strongest at present among Ling Han's disciples, so he naturally had to cling to him. Ding Ping's character was calm, not bloodthirsty and rash like Juyao's, not as flashy as Jiang Yefeng's, and not as inflexible as Chen Ruijing's. Either there was no need to mention Yun Yongwang and Kang Shuyuan. Both of them focused mainly on alchemy, and martial arts was merely their side occupation. He darkly declared, "We still have to eat. Please leave. After we finish eating, we will naturally leave." These words could be claimed to be neither servile nor overbearing, and were reasonable and justified. We were here first, and it was naturally first come first serve for a business. "Great, you're quite bold." Lu Yojing's expression turned cold, but he did not make a move. He could also tell that Ding Ping and his group were very powerful. At least their cultivation level was much higher than his, so he directly declared his backer as he said, "Could it be that you all have never heard of Brother Xiong's identity? He is the most popular person by the side of the Lord Left Minister." As he spoke, he was very pleased with himself. Even Xiong Chengyun couldn't help but stand up straighter, while his eyes paused on the beautiful face of the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, his expression extremely stunned by her beauty. In the imperial capital, only the empress was more beautiful than this woman. Shui Yenyu could match her in beauty, though. It was too bad that this woman had gone missing after the Majestic Heaven sect had been mysteriously destroyed. According to theories, she should have long since died. His overwhelming confidence caused him to be considerably braver, evil intentions surging up in his heart. Chapter 1400 Refusing to Accept Face. Chapter 1400 Refusing to Accept Face. Since Lu Yujing had called out Xiong Chengyun's name, Ling Han could not pretend that he had not realized the latter was there any longer. Hence, he spoke up. So it is Brother Xiong. Actually, with Ling Han's present abilities, even if it was the left minister himself who had come, he could still treat him as an equal. The left minister might even have to turn around and call him Brother Ling instead. Apparently, the left minister was only in the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. This gap of a minor level was equivalent to the gap between the heaven and earth. However, Ling Han was a nostalgic person. When he had first come to the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, Xiong Chengyun had spoken of a lot of matters to him, and had done him the favor of providing him guidance. They had also had a mostly amiable relationship, so Ling Han had to admit that he recognized the fact that he owed Xiong Chengyun a favor. Ling Han. When Xiong Chengyun saw Ling Han, his eyes widened involuntarily. In the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, especially in the imperial capital, Ling Han was a legendary character. The Empress had issued an imperial decree for him twice. His honor was boundless. He had plucked Shui Yenyu, this supremely beautiful flower, and engendered the envy of who knew how many men in the imperial capital so much that they wanted to kill him. Especially when he came into conflict with Zhao Lun, he dared to even offend the 7 generals. How awesome was this guy? Too bad, the left minister did not like him. Xiong Chengyun naturally adopted the left minister's likes and dislikes as his own standard, and together with his own jealousy, he became more and more distant with Ling Han. In the end, the both of them had become practically strangers to one another. Very soon, Ling Han vanished mysteriously. Occasionally, Xiong Chengyun would recall this prodigy that had once shone so brightly, but he would soon put the thought to the back of his mind. But now, Ling Han had actually reappeared. Where had he been all these years? These thoughts merely flashed through Xiong Chengyun's mind in an instant before vanishing, and his bearing was still as proud as he had been. This was not the past. At present, the left minister had great authority in his grasp, and he had the name of Little Left Minister. Even if he was in the mountain river tier, so what? Even the ancestor of the consummate level of the sun-moon tier would have to be polite to him, and dared not offend him in the slightest. So what would Ling Han count as? What this world lacked the least was prodigies. He looked at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and felt very upset. In the past, it had been Shui Yenyu, and now it was this extremely beautiful woman whose beauty was not the slightest bit inferior to the former. Why did Ling Han have such good luck with women? Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, since it is Brother Xiong, then let us give way. Feng Po Yun and the others were all astonished. Ling Han was not the type to suffer in silence, so why had he chosen to yield? However, they respected Ling Han's decision. None of them objected, and all of them stood up. Ling Han naturally did not fear Xiong Chengyun or the left minister, but rather did so purely because he owed Xiong Chengyun a favor, and since it could let a heavenly body tier elite or rather 2 heavenly body tier elites let them have the private room, this favor was naturally colossal. And from the moment that Ling Han stood up, the friendship between the two of them had also come to an end. Xiong Chengyun was filled with envy again. Ling Han was obviously very ordinary, but there was no shortage of the sun-moon tier elites who even obeyed his every command by his side. Just look, he told them to give way, and they did. They didn't even say another word in objection. Of course, it could also be possible that these people were wary of his identity. After all, he was a popular person by the side of the left minister, so what was a sun-moon tier worth? With these thoughts, his courage naturally increased even further. The evil intentions that he had long since borne had also gotten out of hand, and he said, "This miss is not bad, so why don't you stay and share some wine with us?" The expressions of Chen Ruijing and the other senior disciples changed drastically. Fuck, he actually dared to insult their missus? In their heads, their first priority was the missus, and the master was second. Ding Ping and Zhou Yao were also filled with killing intent in an instant. They were not filled with as much respect for the heavenly phoenix divine maiden as Chen Ruijing and the others, but insulting the missus was equivalent to insulting the master, so how could they not be enraged? But none of them made a move, and they were waiting to see what Ling Han's decision would be. Hihi, Brother Xiong asked you to stay, so that is the good fortune that you have accumulated over 3 lives. Quickly thank Brother Xiong. Lu Yujing quickly shouted at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, salivating internally. He, too, desired such an exquisite beauty. Ling Han's eyes froze over. Pa, with a wave of his hand, he sent Lu Yujing flying out. Peng, there was instantly a human-shaped hole in the wall. Lu Yujing had already collapsed on the streets, his body in the form of the Chinese character. Ling Han, how dare you? You actually dare to cause injury in the imperial capital itself. Xiong Chengyun could not help but break out in a cold sweat. He had suddenly recalled that Ling Han was outrageously bold. He even dared to offend greatly the only son of the great General Zhao. In comparison, what was a popular person by the side of the left minister worth? Was a dog as important as a son? He shuddered, and broke out in a cold sweat. So much for the thoughtfulness I gave you. Ling Han waved another palm, and Pa, Xiong Chengyun was also sent flying out. There was a second human-shaped hole on the wall, and Xiong Chengyun also fell next to Lu Yujing on the streets below. This scene was a little humorous, and those nearby all bore strange expressions. Some couldn't help laughing out loud, but when they found out that these 2 people were Xiong Chengyun and Lu Yujing, naturally all of them turned pale in fear. They hurriedly broke into a run and fled. This would soon become the place of a battle. They should not stay too long here. Ling Han grinned, and said, since the flies have flown off, let's continue eating. Yes. Everyone nodded. Ling Han related that bit of relations he shared with Xiong Chengyun, and everyone nodded. With Ling Han's current status, he took a step back, yet Xiong Chengyun still acted overbearing, so it was his own fault for seeking his own embarrassment. Ling Han had hidden his cultivation level. What a joke. Why did he have to tell him his cultivation level? Was he duty-bound to do so? If he truly thought of him as a friend, then no matter if he was weak or strong, they would be still friends, so why would there have to be a restrictive condition? On the streets, both Xiong Chengyun and Lu Yujing slowly got back to their feet. Their faces had turned red and swollen from the impact. The 2 looked at one another, and revealed a powerful hatred. No, this matter could not end just like this. Brother Xiong, let's go back and get reinforcements, Lu Yujing said ferociously. Let's go. Xiong Chengyun was also crazed with rage. As a popular person by the side of the left minister, if he could not avenge himself after taking such a great loss, he wouldn't be able to hold his face up in the imperial capital in future. However, the left minister was not his father, and was not his servant, either. How could he possibly be moved just because he had been beaten? Thus, they first went to the Lu clan. There was nothing, except for matters that involved those top-rate forces of the heavenly body tier, that the Lu clan, as a top-rate force among Sun Moon tiers, could not resolve. The duo arrived at the Lu clan residence. When they found out that Xiong Chengyun had been beaten, even the ancestor of the Lu clan was alerted. He personally instructed his eldest son to go and apprehend Ling Han's group so they could be severely punished. The eldest son of the Lu clan was named Cheng Feng. He had just crossed over into the consummate level of the Sun Moon tier, and was also a top-notch existence among elites. With him moving out, the matter would assuredly be resolved. Xiong Chengyun was also very satisfied, except for the fact that his future fiancée had seen the sorry look he was portraying now, which was slightly displeasing. But it was all right. When she saw how he trampled on Ling Han's face later, he would regain all his pride and face. The group went off aggressively, and very soon charged to the restaurant. The group halted, and a young man from the Lu clan loudly shouted out, "Insolent maniac, get out here quickly, kneel down and accept your punishment." They had mobilized a total of 17 people from their clan, so there were quite a large number of them. Chapter 1401 Retreating 10 miles with a single punch. 1401 Retreating 10 miles with a single punch. Master, leave it to me. Ding Ping asked permission to fight. No, leave it to me, Zhou Yao argued. After he had lost to Ding Ping, he wanted to be better than Ding Ping, so he would fight over everything with Ding Ping. Ling Han ignored them. He merely sent a palm strike into the air, and Pa, the young man from the Lu clan, was immediately pressed into the ground, his body forming the Chinese character. A human-shaped hole immediately appeared in the floor that had been tiled with blue-green tiles like it was made of tofu. How dare you? Lu Chengfeng's eyes involuntarily froze over. He dared to commit violence even right in front of him. Ling Han, this is the imperial capital, Xiong Chengyun declared icily. He had been thrown onto the ground in public, and this filled him with a cold killing intent. His fury was definitely not something that could be vented just by giving Ling Han a beating. He wanted to kill Ling Han. The empire had its laws. It was forbidden to commit murder in the imperial capital. At least even the left and right ministers and the 7 generals had to adhere to this law in public. Only the 9 kings were exceptions to this rule. However, the 9 kings kept too low a profile, and rarely even left their residence. He wanted to anger and force Ling Han to kill a few members of the Lu clan. Then he could deploy the imperial army and kill Ling Han. So what? Ling Han asked calmly. Putting aside his relations with Empress Luan Xing, merely based on his present abilities alone, he could come and go as he willed in the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire itself. There were really not many laws that he would take to heart. Unfortunately, the news from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had not spread over yet. Otherwise, Xiong Chengyun would never have dared to trifle with Ling Han like this. He was a bringer of misfortune, and he had always been one. Previously, it had only been because his cultivation level was not too high, so he only dared to trifle with the son of great General Zhao, but now his courage had increased by leaps and bounds. Ho ho, could it be that you dare commit murder? Xiong Chengyun asked coldly. This was naturally a provocation. Of course, he himself had hidden by the side of Lu Chengfeng. Even if the skies collapsed, wouldn't there always be someone taller holding it up? The noble daughter of the Lu clan saw this, and couldn't help but reveal an expression of disdain. No matter how ruthless you were with your words, you did not take any bit of responsibility. Was this even a man? Before this, she had only seen Xiong Chengyun's well-regarded face. This kind of Xiong Chengyun was very bright, and everyone would flatter him, but the fact that he would be so embarrassing when encountering the slightest predicament caused her to be greatly disappointed. Her positive opinion of him fell massively. Ling Han did not speak. Was there still any need for him to argue with a mountain river tear? He pressed down with a palm onto empty air, and Xiong Chengyun immediately could not bear the pressure. His legs weakened, and he was forced to kneel. The great amount of force caused the whole street to tremble lightly, and his bones broke and shattered instantly. Ah! Xiong Chengyun screamed terribly. This pain had gone bone deep. Lu Chengfeng's expression had completely frozen over. This man was too bold. He actually dared to make a move right in front of him. You're seeking death. He brandished a fist and shot out a punch at the restaurant. Let me. Ding Ping rushed out. Let me. Zhou Yao was not about to give him the chance. The two of them moved at the same time. Peng, peng. Their attacks combined together. However, Ding Ping had just broken through into the Sun-Moon tier, whereas Zhou Yao was only in the peak stage of the Mountain River tier. Neither of them could possibly be a match for the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. They were both instantly sent flying, and became an arrow of blood in the air. Thankfully, they had all cultivated the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art. Though their physique was not as freakish as Ling Han's, they were still considerably sturdier than the average cultivator. Otherwise, with such a big difference in their cultivation levels, they would definitely be shattered into dust with a single move. Ignorance. Lu Chengfeng smirked coldly. In the immortal level, every gap of a sub-minor level meant a world of difference, what more when he was in the consummate level. The strongest of the two was only in the low extreme, and there was a whole gap of 3 sub-minor levels. But he was also slightly astonished. That young man in the low extreme was too young, and was absolutely younger than 500 years old. He had broken through into the Sun-Moon tier before 500 years old. Only over a dozen people could match that kind of achievement in the whole history of the chaotic star's majestic empire. The most recent was definitely Zhao Lun, but he had only broken through into the Sun-Moon tier when he had been 700 to 800 years old. Ling Han grabbed out at empty air, and pulled back both Ding Ping and Zhou Yao. He had his own judgment. His two disciples cooperating would mean that their lives were safe, at the very least. Otherwise, he would definitely have moved to stop them. You should also take a punch from me, Ling Han stated calmly, and shot out a punch. This punch looked to be very slow, but when it was delivered, it appeared in front of Lu Chengfeng, giving him a great shock. He hurriedly shot out a fist to parry this oncoming attack. Peng! The two fists collided. Lu Chengfeng was completely motionless, and he proudly declared, "Is that all?" He had yet to finish his words when his expression changed abruptly. He retreated 3 consecutive steps, and then finally stopped. He was just about to open his mouth to speak again, yet retreated another 3 steps again. He stopped, wanted to speak, and then went into a retreat again. And just like that, Lu Chengfeng stopped and retreated, stopped and retreated. He repeatedly tried to speak, but he could not do as he willed every time. At first, this was very funny, but after over a dozen times, no one else thought it was amusing. Instead, they all looked shocked and stunned. It was just a single punch. How could the force of the punch stay for such a long time? Furthermore, Lu Chengfeng was in the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. Xiong Chengyun forced himself to raise his head. He was filled with shock. Exactly what level had Ling Han reached? Previously, this guy was already a freak of cultivation, and while he had a late beginning, he had soon outstripped and exceeded even himself, who had started earlier than him. Now, not only had he advanced into the Sun-Moon tier, he had even reached the consummate level or even the utmost peak level. Otherwise, how could he possibly have sent Lu Chengfeng into an endless retreat with a single punch? Of course, no matter how Xiong Chengyun dared to imagine, he could not possibly imagine that Ling Han was in the heavenly body tier. This was too unreasonable. That was because he had seen with his own eyes that Ling Han had only been in the shattering void tier previously, and he could have easily killed him with a single palm strike. Lu Chengfeng continued to retreat, and the other members of the Lu clan naturally would not just sit idly by and watch. They followed him, whereas 2 of them helped Xiong Chengyun up. Each person held onto one of his arms, and helped him flee in a sorry state. Meanwhile, the eyes of the noble daughter of the Lu clan shone brightly. She had also heard of the legend of Ling Han. She had never imagined that the legend would appear personally in front of her. Furthermore, he was even stronger than she had heard. Meanwhile, Lu Chengfeng continued to retreat, and could not stop at all. He had broken through who knew how many walls, and destroyed who knew how many buildings. Thankfully, the Lu clan was very wealthy, so they could still afford to pay this little bit of compensation. However, it was as if the eldest son of the Lu clan had gone mad. He did not crash into the street, but chose to crash into walls. Not only did he crash into walls, he did the crashing while he was going backwards. This quickly spread throughout the whole imperial capital. It continued all the way until he had retreated 10 miles away, at which point Lu Chengfeng finally collapsed and sat on the ground. The corner of his mouth twitched continuously. He felt that cold sweat had covered his whole body, all his hair standing on ends. Previously, he had really been unable to control himself. That feeling was too frightening. "Quick, go and find Ancestor," he exclaimed with a shudder. This Ling Han's abilities were too strong. It definitely had to be someone in the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier that he would be able to suppress him. No, perhaps that would only be an equal match for him, and would not be able to suppress him. They hurriedly rushed back to the Lu clan residence. When he heard of what Lu Chengfeng had experienced, the ancestor of the Lu clan had a moment of slight hesitation. Was it worth it to start a fight with an elite in the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier? But Xiong Chengyun immediately spoke up and placed pressure on him, so the ancestor of the Lu clan could only grit his teeth and bear it. To claim a connection to the left minister, there was a need to obtain the favor of Xiong Chengyun. He would have to throw caution to the wind. He personally moved. Leading more than half of the clansmen of the Lu clan, he headed to the restaurant. And the Lu clan moving out back and forth, especially when Lu Chengfeng had broken through 10 miles of walls, naturally alerted a great many people, who all rushed over to watch the excitement. Chapter 1402, Completely Stupefied. 1402 Completely Stupefied. Who was this? He dared to be so outrageously bold that he had even caused the ancestor of the Lu clan to come out. Ling Han? What? Ling Han's come back. Ling Han is still alive. When they knew that this culprit was Ling Han, everyone bore a strange expression. It was not new information that Ling Han was the type to cause trouble. He made an enemy of Shuo Yuan and Zhao Lun, and dared to even offend 2 great generals in the heavenly body tier, so it was completely nothing unusual for him to now anger the ancestor of the Lu clan. However, this was an excitement they definitely had to see. The news spread like wildfire, and more people moved out, heading in this direction. And when the news reached the residence of the great General Shuo, an endless killing intent surged out immediately, causing the surrounding area to become extraordinarily cold. Shuo Yuan had died in Ling Han's hands, but Great General Shuo had not even managed to avenge his son when the majestic heaven sect had been destroyed, and Ling Han had also disappeared. All these years, Great General Shuo had thought that Ling Han was dead, but now he actually found out that Ling Han had come back alive, so it was natural that his killing intent would blaze. Though Shuo Yuan was not the most outstanding of the Great General Shuo's sons, he was not someone that could be easily killed just like that, either. Xiao, the Great General Shuo flew out. When a heavenly body tier was enraged, even the formation that protected the imperial capital trembled greatly. The left and right ministers and the remaining 6 great generals were also alerted. Of course, because the transmission of news was slightly slower, long before the Great General Shuo had moved out, the ancestor of the Lu clan had already led his clansmen and arrived at the restaurant. Ling Han, you'd better come out and accept your death, the juniors of the Lu clan called out loudly. At this time, Ling Han had already finished eating. He sat calmly on the upper floor, and he just happened to be clearly seen through one of the human-shaped holes. He waved a hand casually, and those juniors each received a slap. They were all sent flying, all of them unconscious. This naturally was because Ling Han had gone easy on them. Otherwise, if a heavenly body tier moved, not just mountain river tiers would definitely not be able to survive it, even sun-moon tiers would be obliterated in an instant. The ancestor of the Lu clan was furious, and he shouted, Ling Han, you are too bold. You actually dare to humiliate my clansmen in front of me. Old man, if you continue to make noise, I'll beat you too, Ling Han stated calmly. Since things had reached this point, he decided to simply let go, and just let the trouble continue to its end. The ancestor of the Lu clan was so furious that he smiled instead. Not only had he lived to such an old age, he was also in existence in the peak stage of the consummate level of the sun-moon tier. How many were there in the whole chaotic star's majestic empire that could beat him? At most, there were only 20. It couldn't be helped. The chaotic star's majestic empire had been established for only a short time, and did not have much background. How could it be compared with the Eternity Sky and Jade Drop majestic empires? Junior, come down, I really want to teach you what it means to respect your elders. The ancestor of the Lu clan had not finished what he meant to say when his face had already severely been slapped. Oh, what do you want to teach me? Ling Han asked calmly. He had not even approached, and was still sitting high up on the upper floor of the restaurant. Then, he delivered another slap. The ancestor of the Lu clan had no way to resist at all, and was on the receiving end of repeated slaps. His face had immediately turned red and swelled. His teeth flew out one after another, blood covering his whole face. However, the physical pain was practically negligible. The ancestor of the Lu clan had already gone blank with shock. How could he only possibly be in the sun-moon tier if he could play with him as he liked like this? His heart trembled violently, and a realization that he could not believe at all surged up in his heart. Though he was absolutely unwilling to face it, the truth itself was slapping him in the face. A heavenly body tier elite. Ling Han was actually in the heavenly body tier. Heavens, for the sake of currying the favor of the dog of a great elite in the heavenly body tier, he actually went and offended another heavenly body tier. How stupid was that? But who could have imagined that the country bumpkin that had come from opening the sky those years ago had become a great elite of the heavenly body tier in an instant when just these few years had passed? No one could have possibly imagined that, and they would not dare to imagine such a possibility, either. Not only was the ancestor of the Lu clan completely stupefied, all the others were gaping widely, yet could not emit the slightest sound. Heavenly body tier. This was definitely a heavenly body tier elite. Xiong Chengyun was about to cry. If you had advanced into the heavenly body tier, you should have said so. After becoming this kind of elite, he dared not even have the slightest bit of envy. Even if the left minister himself had arrived, he would have to treat him respectfully. He had offended a great elite of the heavenly body tier, so the left minister would definitely turn his back on him. What kind of eyes did he have? How could he possibly do the jobs that he had been assigned well with such poor insight? A great elite of the heavenly body tier. The beautiful eyes of the noble daughter of the Lu clan shone brightly. This was the kind of husband that she dreamt of. There was a dead silence. Only the sound of the continuous slaps that the ancestor of the Lu clan was receiving could be heard, appearing very sharp to the ear. More importantly, a sun-moon tier was strong, especially when they were defended by origin power, so their skin was naturally thicker and stronger than even the city walls, so there was a very powerful impact when it was being slapped. The well-known figures of the younger generation all arrived. There was Li Weiwei, Ji Yuna, as well as Luo Ba, Lin Yu, Ma Xing, and Cheng Haofei, and Zhao Lun had arrived as well. His face was completely dark, shock and terror filling his eyes. Ling Han had actually advanced into the heavenly body tier. Just think, at that time, he had repeatedly insulted Ling Han, and had even wanted to kill the latter. All this was because he had a father in the heavenly body tier standing behind him, which caused him to do as he liked and act without any scruples. But now, Ling Han had become a heavenly body tier, and now it was Ling Han's turn to act without any scruples. Even if he killed him, what of it? Could a great elite of heavenly body tier be insulted? What a joke. Ling Han, you've come back? Li Weiwei called out loudly. You meanie, I thought you had died. Ling Han withdrew his hand with a smile, and said, long time no see. Previously, he had cooperated with Li Weiwei and Ji Yuna for business, and they could be claimed to have had a very cheerful partnership. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden immediately gave a humph, and asked, which girlfriend is this of yours again? Why have I never heard you talk about her? Meanwhile, Chen Ruijing and the others snickered secretly on the side. They could be claimed to know the temperament of this missus of theirs very well. Her character was unyielding, and she was not prepared to turn a blind eye on anything objectionable. Humph. A heavy pressure suddenly approached, causing everyone's hearts to be filled with a powerful fear. It was as if in the time for a mere thought, this place would become a bloodbath. Not a single person would be able to remain alive. A figure appeared, his whole body enshrouded in a chaotic aura, though it was not very dense. His appearance was still visible. He was completely dressed in military attire, had a square face, his appearance majestic, and exuded an aura of dignity and imperiousness. Sho Jing, the great General Sho. Xiao, another incredibly powerful being appeared. Zhao Jianbai, the great General Zhao. Quickly, a third elite appeared. He was dressed in scholarly attire, and appeared very clean-cut and quiet. The left minister, Li Cheng. 3 great elites of the heavenly body tier had arrived all at once. This was the strongest level of power of Joint Peace Planet. Though these 3 people had not reached the consummate level, since they had advanced into this cultivation tier, they had the qualification of being a small world by themselves. The left minister looked at Ling Han. His initially unruffled, assured expression immediately disappeared completely. Ling Han, it was actually Ling Han. This guy had actually advanced into the heavenly body tier, and had done it so quickly at that. He knew that Ling Han's natural talent in cultivation was astonishing, but he had thought that even if Ling Han's fortune was nature-defying, he would need at least 1 to 2 million years to be able to step into this cultivation level, and there were too many things that could happen in these 1 to 2 million years. Ling Han himself was also an extreme and troublemaking character as well. Thus, The left minister had been unwilling to allow his beloved daughter be too close to Ling Han. Yet he had never imagined this. The left minister felt his face flushing hotly as if he had just been slapped harshly. What poor vision had he had? Chapter 1403 Another Heavenly Body Tear. 1403 Another Heavenly Body Tear. Ling Han, you killed my son, and today is the day I will make you compensate with your life, Shuo Jing stated coldly. He could not tell Ling Han's cultivation level, but was still unafraid as he thought their cultivation levels were equal. However, just how many years had Ling Han cultivated? Could he be a match for him? They were both in the low extreme of the heavenly body tier, and he was confident that he could easily suppress Ling Han. He had to avenge the murder of his son, and as a great general, he naturally had special privileges, and as he had declared that it was to avenge the murder of his son, it could be considered absolutely justified, so he dared to commit murder fully in public in the imperial capital. Your son, Shuo Yuan, attempted to kill me repeatedly. I killed him, but I have a clear conscience, Ling Han stated calmly. If you are dissatisfied about it, then I accept your challenge. Then die. As Shuo Jing's origin power boiled, his aura as a heavenly body tier rolled out in an incredibly frightening manner. This was a suppression on the level of being, causing everyone in the proximity to collapse onto the ground. Only a few were exceptions, such as Zhao Lun. He naturally had the protection of the great General Zhao, just like Li Weiwei had the protection of the left minister. On Ling Han's side, there was naturally no issue with his and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's protection. Hold on. Ling Han waved a hand, his eyes sweeping over the left minister, Shuo Jing, and Zhao Jianbai. Then, he said, when I was at the majestic heaven sect, I had once been hunted down by someone, and my starship was destroyed. The culprit should be one of you, right? At the time, there were only those few heavenly body tiers that he had met, and Empress Luan Xing and Chu Choshue did not have the motive to do this. Yet the remaining three were suspects, especially Shuo Jing and Zhao Jianbai. Humph, were you worthy of me making a move on you at the time? Shuo Jing immediately retorted in disdain. Zhao Jianbai and the left minister also disdained from answering. They conducted themselves with dignity, so it was naturally impossible that they would answer whatever questions was asked of them. Ling Han looked confused. At the time, he had remembered the aura of the person who had ambushed him, but it was different from these three. This was also why he had asked directly. Perhaps, at that time, the person who ambushed him had deliberately changed his aura. With the abilities of the heavenly body tier, it was completely possible to have fooled the Ling Han of that time. But the problem was, the person who ambushed him at that time should have been completely capable of killing him directly, so why had he done something so unnecessary? Humph, even if you try to delay, no one will be able to save you, Shuo Jing uttered coldly. He wanted to avenge the death of his son. Wait. The left minister stretched out an arm to block him. Brother Shuo, Ling Han is a member of our chaotic star's majestic empire, and he has already advanced into the heavenly body tier at present, which is a great fortune of our empire. How could we fight amongst our own people? He killed my son, and you still want me to have a peaceful relationship with him? Shuo Jing smirked coldly. This was really the greatest joke in the world. The left minister had decided he wanted to mend the relations between himself and Ling Han. He had broken through to the heavenly body tier at such a young age, so his future prospects would definitely be boundless. He had already made a mistake, and had no intention of making another. Brother Shuo, I am the left minister of our empire. Before Her Majesty went into isolation, she has delegated the important matters of state to myself, and Brother Du the left minister brought Empress Luan Xing into the matter. This was a powerful weapon that could suppress everything else. True enough, Shuo Jing looked slightly wary. The reign of Empress Luan Xing was extremely strict. Previously, she had already killed one of the great generals personally. If he deliberately disobeyed her, and was called for an accounting later on, then even if he was a great elite of heavenly body tier, a great general of the empire, so what? Brother Li, is Brother Shuo's son not a citizen of our empire? Zhao Jianbai interrupted. This man is only a subject of the empire, yet dared to kill the son of a great general of our empire. If this is not severely punished, how could that be reasonable? That's right. Sho Jing immediately regained his resolution, not only due to Zhao Jianbai's argument, but also because the latter had made his position clear was siding with him. Brother Li, you should cooperate with us to suppress this violent criminal together, Zhao Jianbai persuaded. Even if Ling Han had just broken through into the heavenly body tier, they were all in the low extreme. If Ling Han put his life on the line to fight them, it would not be easily dealt with, either. If 3 heavenly body tiers joined forces, their chances of safety was naturally greatly increased. The left minister couldn't help but be stuck in a dilemma. He wanted to protect Ling Han, but if it would lead him to become hostile with 2 great generals, he'd hesitate. Was it worth it? At present, though he had great authority, he still shared the rule with the right minister, and also because the 7 generals had not expressed their stand, the 2 ministers were equal in power. But if Zhao Jianbai and Sho Jing sided with the right minister, he would definitely be suppressed by the right minister. To offend 2 heavenly body tiers for the sake of one, it was not a worthy bargain. He thought for a moment. Then, with a wave of his sleeve, he said, "Since you have a personal grudge with him, you settle the grudge yourselves. I will not interfere." Father. Li Weiwei immediately jumped up. He said he would not interfere, but in truth, wouldn't that mean that he would allow them to do as they liked? Yet the left minister expression was solemn, and he gave his daughter an imposing look. This daughter really gave him too many worries. It was time for him to seek a husband for her. She should become more reserved after she had become someone's wife. Though Zhao Jianbai and Sho Jing were not too satisfied, the left minister had clearly stated he would not interfere. That was not too bad, either. At least they had one less very powerful barrier they would have to overcome. The both of them were experienced great elites of the heavenly body tier, and Ling Han had just barely broken through. How could it be that they couldn't deal with him easily with the 2 of them working together? Ling Han, you'd better kneel down and accept your punishment. As a subject, you deliberately disobeyed the law. Do you plan to have the great Ling Empire die for your sake? Zhao Jianbai exerted pressure on Ling Han using the name of righteousness. I'll go. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden stood up. She had just advanced into the heavenly body tier, and just happened to want a chance to test out her abilities. All right. Ling Han nodded. With him supporting her from the background, it should be fine. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden sent out a palm strike, and the whole wall was sent flying. She took a step out, her figure standing in midair. What? Seeing this scene, everyone had gone numb with shock. Without any external tool, being capable of standing in midair, this was heavenly body tier. Wang, there was actually another great elite of heavenly body tier by Ling Han's side. Now, it was 2 against 2, so it was really not easy to judge which side was stronger. Xiong Chengyun was both jealous and terrified. Why? Why was it that a boar from a small world could exceed himself in cultivation level? Why could he obtain the hearts of so many supreme beauties? And now, it was even more exaggerated, he actually had a female companion in the heavenly body tier. Yet he actually said that he wanted this female elite to stay behind and join him for some wine. Wasn't that courting death? Sho Jing and Zhao Jianbai all looked serious. Even though the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's aura was very unsteady, and they could tell with a single glance that she had just broken through to the heavenly body tier, anyone who had advanced into this cultivation level definitely could not be underestimated. After all, they themselves were also only in the peak stage of the low extreme. Miss, this matter is unrelated to you, so what need is there for you to interfere? Sho Jing decided to first attempt to drive a wedge between them. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden stood up highly, a pair of phoenix's wings opening behind her back. Each wing was as long as 1,000 miles. They fluttered lightly, and there were red clouds dancing around them. She opened her mouth and stated, "Ling Han is my husband." When these words were said, it had directly put a block on whatever Sho Jing had wanted to say afterwards. He wanted to avenge his son, so how could it be that he would not allow her to step out for her husband? Even he was envious at that. That was because even though he was also a great elite of the heavenly body tier, it was obviously impossibly that he could marry a woman in the heavenly body tier as his wife as well, so how could he not be envious? Since that is the case, we can only meet on the battlefield. He drew out a saber. That was a treasured tool that had accompanied him for innumerable years on the battlefield, and he had long since refined it that they were mentally connected. Chapter 1404, Killed with a Single Slash. 1404, Killed with a Single Slash. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden dared not underestimate him. She had advanced into the heavenly body tier from the pinnacle level of the sun-moon tier, so her power could surpass more than 5 stars but less than 6 stars. However, according to rumors, the 7 generals and left and right ministers were all 4-star geniuses, and added with the cultivation level of the peak stage of the low extreme and the boost from power of the nation, there should be a 2 to 3 star gap of power between the both of them. This was not a small gap. However, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's bloodline was special. She possessed the power of a true phoenix, which could greatly increase her battle prowess. Furthermore, she had also learnt some secret techniques from Ling Han, and all these factors added together should grant her a further increase of 1 star of battle prowess. Thus, the gap between the battle prowess of both sides should be about 1 to 2 stars, so this fight would be worth fighting. Sho Jing gave a loud shout, and the divine patterns on the precious saber glowed one after another with his full power. An air of military might channeled out, soaring to the skies and sinking underground in a very terrifying manner. He was not a super genius, but if it was in mere terms of the numbers he had killed, he could possibly surpass such young king tiers like Ling Han and Kai Huangji. The bloodshed that he had experienced had condensed into an air of slaughter that had taken form. Those with a slightly weaker temperament would crumple with a single touch. We go up for the battle. Sho Jing shot up into the skies, like a shooting star that had swept past, which was going against its natural direction. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden naturally would not fear a battle. The wings on her back shook, and she similarly flew up into the skies. Boom! Neither of the 2 great elites spoke another word. They immediately went into battle positions and began to fight. Shock waves descended one after another, but they were blocked by the protective formation of the imperial capital, and the great commander of the imperial guards, Chu Choshua, also stood above the imperial capital. She raised her head to look at the skies, an expression of surprise on her face. When had there appeared another female great elite of the heavenly body tier in the chaotic star's majestic empire? Furthermore, though she had just stepped into the heavenly body tier, her battle prowess was incredibly astonishing. Though she was not an equal match for Sho Jing, she did not experience too much of a loss, either. She advanced and retreated accordingly, not showing any sign of losing. Unfortunately, she was on duty, so she did not fly up into the skies to watch the battle. Yet, she still felt a burning curiosity. Where had this woman come from? Father. Zhao Lun called out softly, a disappointed expression as well as a frightening killing intent flashing through his eyes. Zhao Jianbai glanced at his son, and couldn't help but give a humph. He knew what his son was trying to say. He wanted him to kill Ling Han. He was really too childish. Ling Han could advance into the heavenly body tier, so could it be that you couldn't do the same? The moment he was in a dilemma, he would ask this father of his for help. Did Ling Han have a father in the heavenly body tier? He did not yet. He had still broken through to the heavenly body tier so quickly on his own. Hence, one would still have to depend on oneself. Zhao Jianbai sighed. Who asked him to have only a single son? Who was he going to help if not him? Ling Han, we go up to the skies and fight, he spoke up, his voice like a battle song, resounding loudly. Ling Han sat calmly, and asked, if I move, our empire will have 1 less elite. Are you sure you wish to seek your own death? This. Not just Zhao Jianbai. When everyone in the area heard this, which of them did not think that Ling Han was boasting too much? Zhao Jianbai was an experienced elite of the heavenly body tier, and had immersed himself in this cultivation level for innumerable years, so how could he be matched by you, a rookie who had just advanced into this cultivation level? Furthermore, though all of them were subjects of the chaotic star's majestic empire and could draw upon power of the nation, their official rank was different, so the degree of power of the nation they could draw on was also different. He was just a minor 7th rank military officer, so how could he compare to a grand great general? What a joke. Zhao Jianbai laughed from extreme anger. Brat, Though it is indeed extraordinary that you have broken through to the heavenly body tier at such a young age, if you underestimate the great powers of this world just because of that, do you not think that is too arrogant? Come, we go up into the skies for the battle. You are still unable to claim yourself as one of the great powers of the world. Ling Han stated calmly. Since you want a battle, I will accommodate you. He drew that dilapidated wooden sword. Though this thing was only sturdy, it was more than enough to deal with a mere cultivator in the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. When Zhao Jianbai saw this, his expression involuntarily became livid. Was this a weapon? It looks more like a stick to poke the coals, and you use this to fight me. Just how much are you belittling me? Good. His face was livid. If I do not kill you here, then my surname is not Zhao. Ling Han took a step out, his right hand raising the wooden sword, and sent out a slash straight at Zhao Jianbai. It was extremely simple, merely a strike heading right at him. Zhao Jianbai was practically frothing blood in fury. At first, he used a battered sword to humiliate him, and now was just sending such a direct slash in such a disdainful manner at him. Did he think he was a weakling? Fine then, if you are so bold, that is your own fault for seeking death. His right hand shook, and a sword appeared in his grip, quickly stabbing at Ling Han's forehead. Directly aiming for his spirit. What? He was abruptly shocked. This strike from Ling Han was too fast. He had just waved his sword, but in the next moment, it had appeared in front of him. He hurriedly waved his own sword to parry the incoming strike, and was sure that with the sharpness of the divine sword in his grasp, one strike would not only immediately sever the coal-stirring stick, Ling Han would also be sliced in two and become two halves. The wooden sword descended. Pa! A crisp sound rang out. Zhao Jianbai's divine sword was actually sliced into two halves, and the wooden sword fell with practically no deterrence. At this instant, a murderous aura surged out of the sword's blade. It rolled out like smoke in an extremely frightening manner. Even Zhao Jianbai couldn't help but shiver. He had killed people like scything flax all his life, fighting on the battlefield, and could claim that he was a butcher. However, in front of this murderous aura, he was completely a junior, and was no match at all. The wooden sword fell, and he was directly slashed in two, his spirit destroyed as well. What? A powerful heavenly body tier elite had actually been killed with a single slash like that. How was this believable? Meanwhile, the left minister felt his heart constrict strongly. With his insight, he naturally could tell very clearly that Ling Han's abilities had reached an extent that he could easily overwhelm Zhao Jianbai, and that was why he had been successful with only a single slash. Of course, the murderous aura of this seemingly ordinary wooden sword was actually brimming over, so Zhao Jianbai practically did not even counter in the end. It was merely icing on the cake. Even if Ling Han had used another weapon, he would also have succeeded, except for the fact that it would only be a slight bit more difficult. As it turned out, not only had Ling Han advanced into the heavenly body tier, he had even surpassed him. This would have to be the battle prowess of the high extreme, at the very least. Otherwise, how could he have possibly killed Zhao Jianbai with a single slash? Ling Han withdrew his sword, and saw that the very ordinary-looking wooden sword in his grasp was actually exuding a dark shadowy light. Even he felt a strong shudder when he saw this, as if this was not a very ordinary wooden sword, but rather a divine sword that had fought on the battlefield for countless years. He knew that this sword was not ordinary, but he had never thought that its murderous aura would be so exposed when it had touched blood. The veined patterns on the wooden sword had visibly become more distinct. The patterns were very simple, yet there was also an indescribable majesty about it. A sword of massacre, directly destroying the spirit. He would have to slowly study it in future. He put away the sword, and turned to look at Zhao Lun. This proud prodigy was now completely dumbstruck. He had not regained his senses from the fact that Zhao Jianbai had died. He could not accept this. His father had battled for innumerable years, and yet was killed with a single slash from Ling Han. Only when he was focused on by Ling Han's icy eyes did he suddenly shudder violently and wake up from his shock. You actually killed my father," he said in a trembling voice. Suddenly, he turned towards the left minister. "Lord Left Minister, this person killed a great general of our majestic empire. which is no different from committing treason. I beseech you to execute the law of the Empire, sir. Fuck you. The left minister felt a muscle twitch violently in his cheek, and almost cursed. Wasn't that throwing him into the fire pit as well? Chapter 1405, Beaten by whom? Chapter 1405, Beaten by whom? The left minister felt awkward. Zhao Lun's request was actually very logical. A great general of the empire had died, and as the left minister, and presently the highest commander, he could not possibly overlook this matter no matter what. But the problem now was that Ling Han was too strong. He had been able to kill Zhao Jianbai with a single slash, so killing him could also be very easily and happily done. The left minister loved power, but if he was asked to give up his life for the sake of power, he would only snort derisively. He was cursing internally. The matter had already continued for such a long time. Why had the right minister and the other 5 generals not appeared? It was definitely not because they had not yet reached their destination, but rather because they had long since arrived. Previously, they had watched the battle in secret, and now none of them dared to step out. I will pretend that I have not arrived, and know absolutely nothing. In future, no one would be able to say anything about my lack of action, they thought. But fuck, you guys have screwed me over. The left minister's lip twitched madly. This was also because the power of the chaotic star's majestic empire was too poor. Aside from the Empress and the 9 kings, there was actually no one else who had reached the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Now that the Empress and the 9 kings had gone into seclusion together, no one was capable of doing anything to Ling Han. This was also the weakness of relying on a single elite to bear the weight of an entire force. The moment this elite was absent, for example, if he had gone traveling or into seclusion, this force would become extremely fragile. Lord Left Minister, please take vengeance for my father. Zhao Lun knelt down, his eyes streaming with tears. His father had died, so he was definitely sorrowful. However, only he himself knew how much of his tears was genuine grief, and how much of it was mere exaggeration. There were many people watching the excitement, but now, not one of them could speak. This was a battle on the level of the heavenly body tier, and they weren't even qualified to interrupt. Jing Wuxue and the others were rueful. In the past, Ling Han was still their little junior brother, but what about now? They were still at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. There was practically no change, but Ling Han was shockingly already in the heavenly body tier. They all were human beings, so why was there such a large difference between them? The left minister dragged out the last syllable. It was absolutely impossible that he would pick a fight with Ling Han, but a great general had died. This was also an earth-shattering matter, and could not be overlooked simply by playing dumb. Ling Han! A clear shout rang out, and a valiant and formidable woman appeared. She was dressed in battle armor, and had a crimson cloak draped over her shoulders. It was about 3 meters long, as if flew in the wind behind her, showing her heroic spirit on full display. Chu Choshue, the great commander of the Imperial Guards. When the left minister saw her, he immediately felt his heart settle. In terms of battle prowess, Chu Choshue actually surpassed himself because she bore the heavy responsibility of guarding the imperial palace. Not only could she draw on even more power of the nation, she could also invoke the great formation of the imperial palace to a certain extent. What right minister, what 5 great generals, they were not as dependable as this woman. Lady Chu. Ling Han greeted with clasped hands. He was still filled with considerable respect for Chu Choshue. Chu Choshue's face was cold as she said, "You are now already in the heavenly body tier, and are on equal level with me. I dare not accept the respectful address of lady. Let me ask you, have you come to our empire to show off your strength?" Ling Han shook his head, and replied, "I have no intention to bluster around. At first, I wanted to seek an audience with Her Majesty, but as the Empress has gone into isolation, I decided to stay a while here. I did not think that so many things would happen afterwards." Chu Choshue's expression cleared slightly, and she said, "You have killed a great general of our empire. There are too many implications involved in this matter, and it cannot possibly be finished like this. When Her Majesty comes out of isolation, there will definitely be a resolution." "All right." Ling Han nodded. What relation did he have with the Empress? In the past, for the sake of the 9 kings, she did not hesitate to kill a great general, and now, for her beloved, what would killing another matter? Furthermore, it was Ling Han who had personally killed him. And if it came down to it, it was Zhao Jianbai who provoked him, and delivered himself straight to be killed. Zhao Lun's eyes were malicious. He knew it was no longer possible to use someone else to kill Ling Han. The left minister did not dare move at all, and Chu Choshua was unwilling to move, either. He stepped back quietly. He had long since become enemies with Ling Han, and now Ling Han would definitely call him for an accounting. If he didn't run, wouldn't that simply be waiting for death? What are you running for? However, he had just taken a step when he heard Ling Han's calm voice ring out by his ear. Next, he was gripped by an invisible hand and picked up. Ling Han. Chu Choshua glared angrily. You have already killed a great general of the empire. Do you still intend to commit murder? As the great commander of the Imperial Guards, she could not pretend that she had not seen this. Peng. A loud sound rang out, and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was seen to have been struck down. Meanwhile, Sho Jing was standing proudly in midair. After all, his cultivation level was much higher, and he also had the additional boost from power of the nation, so he naturally had the upper hand in this clash. Sho Jing was just about to begin shouting when he spotted Zhao Jianbai's body that had already been hacked into 2 halves, much to his shock. Fuck. He naturally would not think that this had been done by the left minister or Chu Choshua. Putting aside the fact that neither of them had this kind of courage, they did not have the abilities to do so, either. There was only one person. Ling Han. Hiss, this young man was actually powerful to this extent. Sho Jing could not see through to Ling Han's cultivation level, but he had thought that Ling Han had deliberately concealed his cultivation level all this while. They were all in the low extreme, so this was naturally easily done. But now, from the look of things, he had guessed wrongly. He could not distinguish his cultivation level, because Ling Han's cultivation level was above his own. Thus, the other had easily killed Zhao Jianbai so quickly and with so little commotion that even he had not noticed. That was because the pressure the heavenly phoenix divine maiden had exerted on him was also very heavy, so how could he possibly dare divide his attention? He trembled and shrank back. It was one matter to fight on the battlefield. He had killed millions because he knew that his abilities had definitely reached the summit, and there was definitely no one capable of killing him, and not because he was unafraid of dying and was a born homicidal maniac. In the face of the pressure of death, he sweated madly, and his whole back was completely wet in an instant. The hatred of killing his son? He was not Zhao Jianbai. He had quite a number of sons, and Sho Yuan was only one of them. Moreover, he was not the most outstanding one, either. Now that he was dead, then he was dead. Are you all right? Ling Han turned to look at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden shot upwards. There were traces of blood on her body and at the corner of her lips, but her vitality had not been reduced. She looked a little aggrieved and slightly stubborn as she said, I lost. Ling Han shook his head, and replied, How could you have lost? You must have remembered wrongly. He looked at Sho Jing, stretched out his other hand. His hand covered the skies, and pressed down on Sho Jing. So what if you're in the heavenly body tier? That is how overbearing I can be. Chu Choshua's fingers trembled slightly, and she had the urge to move. But when she saw this palm of Ling Han did not have the slightest bit of killing intent, she forcibly repressed the impulse. How could Sho Jing defend against this all on his own? The massive hand pressed down, and he was directly pressed onto the ground. Peng, 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 peng. Innumerable shock waves of origin power later, Sho Jing was immediately blasted to beyond recognition and made for a tragic sight. Ling Han withdrew his hand with a smile, and said, Look, wife, isn't he more seriously wounded than you? It naturally is your victory. This. In broad daylight, you were practically lying through your teeth. As it happened, Ling Han was not going to give up the matter here. He turned to Sho Jing and asked, Brother Sho, whom were you beaten by? His eyes narrowed in a glare, the ferocity in them on full display. At this moment, his killing intent soared, and looked completely like he would be committing violence at the slightest disagreement. Sho Jing was incredibly aggrieved, his hands tightly gripped into fists. Using the quietest voice, he replied, "I was beaten by her." Chapter 1406, Screwing over the Minister Again. Chapter 1406, Screwing over the Minister Again. "See, wife, even he himself admits that you are the culprit." Ling Han turned to look at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden again, all his killing intent evaporating into nothing. This deliberate misrepresentation, debauchery, and purposefully distorting the truth. What justice was there left in the world? Everyone wore strange expressions. When had a great elite of the heavenly body tier fallen to this level that he did not even dare to point out the person who had injured him? Ling Han was really too overbearing, but even more women's eyes shone brightly. This was a supremely good man, so considerate and protective that even they wanted to marry him. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden involuntarily laughed, and was also a bit embarrassed. She slapped Ling Han's back lightly, but she was also filled with happiness. In the eyes of others, Ling Han was deliberately distorting the truth, overbearing and unreasonable, but in her eyes, this was the very gentlest and very most considerate action. "Brother Shaw, go ahead and get treatment for your injuries." Ling Han shook his hand casually, and Shaw Jing was instantly sent flying. Though he had killed Shaw Yuan, he did not bear a grudge against Shaw Jing. As long as he did not act forceful and imperious, he was not the type to involve others in a personal grudge, either. Furthermore, Chu Choshua was already here, so no matter what, he still had to give her some face. Shaw Jing did not dare utter a word, and simply turned and left. At this instant, he was no great general. He lowered his head, and even his figure seemed to be slightly smaller than usual. Zhao Lun was almost scared out of his wits. Even the great General Shaw had been beaten like a dog, and he did not even dare utter a word of disagreement. Moreover, the great Commander Chu also did not say a word, either, tacitly approving of Ling Han's actions. He did not want to die. He wanted to get his vengeance. Could he allow himself to die in this place? "Zhao Lun, I have never minded competition, but you have repeatedly expressed killing intent towards me, and sent people to kill me. Furthermore, on the basis that your cultivation level had been higher than mine, you had also personally moved against me as well," Ling Han said calmly. "Now, my cultivation level is higher than yours, so I shall also act the bully this once. If you can block 3 moves from me, I will spare your life." 3 moves, your sister. Zhao Lun was already cursing in his heart. Even his old man couldn't block a single strike from Ling Han, and he actually wanted him to block 3 moves. How was this any means of giving him a way out? "That's right, I have absolutely no plans of allowing you to live," Ling Han said. His hand tightened into a fist, and Zhao Lun was kneaded into pieces. The blood and flesh of the Sun Moon tier contained very strong power, but because it was confined by Ling Han's hand, not the slightest bit of a shockwave was emitted. Zhao Lun's form and spirit had been destroyed. Xiong Chengyun's face had turned white, then turned green, and then became dark as if he was a chameleon. Now, every one of them had been called to an accounting by Ling Han, so how could he possibly be spared? Most importantly, all this had been started by him in the first place. If only he had not wanted that damned private room in the first place. Who could have imagined that the death of a heavenly body tier elite would occur, and another had been forced to flee like a rat? And the starting fuse of all this was because 2 minor characters of the Mountain River tier had forcibly wanted to snatch a private room? It was possible that no one would believe this theory. It was too nonsensical. "Lord Left Minister, save me, save me." Xiong Chengyun no longer cared that his leg had broken, and forcibly used origin power to solidify his bones. He scrambled to the left minister and knelt down with a loud bang, repeatedly kowtowing. Though the left minister had witnessed the death of a heavenly body tier elite, he did not know what part Xiong Chengyun had played in this matter. He was baffled. In his mind, how could a mere Mountain River tier have the capability of offending a heavenly body tier elite? He waved him off, and said, "Get up first, what is going on here?" This was his dog, after all. In front of outsiders, he still had the obligation to shield him a bit. How could Xiong Chengyun possibly dare to get up? He merely continued to kowtow, and begged, "My lord, save me, my lord, save me." The left minister laughed, and thought that Xiong Chengyun had been scared dumb by the killing of a heavenly body tier elite. He stretched out a hand and clapped Xiong Chengyun's shoulder, and said, "Don't be nervous. I am here, so there is no need for you to worry." Ling Han also smiled, and said, "The left minister is truly one to empathize with his subordinates." How could the left minister know that all this had been started by Xiong Chengyun? He did not dare believe that, either, and thought that Ling Han was really complimenting him. Involuntarily, the smile on his face grew wider. If this had been the past, and Ling Han had dared say this to him, he not only would not have been pleased, he would have flown into a rage. "Just who did you think you were? You actually dared to praise me. Did you think you were my superior?" But now, Ling Han had proved his superiority with his strength, and the left minister suddenly felt overwhelmed. If the same words, even if it was a compliment, were spoken from the mouths of different people, the effects were absolutely different. "Ho ho, I should. It is my duty." The left minister's smile widened, and he appeared to be very pleased. Ling Han also smiled, and then slowly said, "Brother Xiong is also astonishingly courageous. Previously, my brothers and I were dining in the restaurant, and Brother Xiong insisted that we should move so that we could allow him to have the private room. Then, afterwards, he even wanted my wife to share a drink with him." Pu. The left minister immediately spluttered, even his face had turned green. "I *** your sister." He looked at Xiong Chengyun, and Xiong Chengyun shivered as if he was ill. "You are really quite bold. You demanded that a great elite of the heavenly body tier let you have his private room, and asked another great elite of the heavenly body tier to drink with you. Just who do you think you are? Fuck, I was already screwed over by Zhao Lun once just now, and now you also want to screw me over. What enmity and animosity do you have against me?" The left minister was furious, and suddenly started to thrash Xiong Chengyun heavily. What empathizing with subordinates? To hell with empathizing, he was about to kill himself because of him, and there was still talk of empathizing? Why didn't no one empathize with him, then? The speed at which he suddenly turned hostile was really unexpected. Those nearby were all watching dumbfounded as the left minister, who was in humiliated rage, thrashed his own lackey with completely no care for his own image. It was practically enough to shatter their outlook on life. Is this really the left minister? "Spare me, my lord. Spare me, my lord." Xiong Chengyun howled terribly. He had not thought that Ling Han had not even made a move, and it would be the left minister who would first take his life. But the left minister had committed a grave error, so he naturally had to draw a clear distinguishing line between himself and Xiong Chengyun now. Otherwise, if Ling Han misunderstood that he was trying to cover up for Xiong Chengyun, it would be terrible. Xiong Chengyun's voice became softer and softer, and finally there was no longer any sign of life from him. He had been beaten to death. He had died aggrieved. His success was because of the left minister, and his death was also because of the left minister. The reason why he could be a well-regarded and grand personage was because he had gained the backing of the left minister, but it was also because he had this backing that he was absolutely unrestrained and extremely ambitious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone so far as to trifle with Ling Han. As a result, the left minister moved personally and beat him to death. No matter how popular a lapdog was, he was still only a lapdog. When everyone looked at Ling Han, their eyes were filled with respect. This kind of elite was already superior to the right and left ministers and the 7 generals. Just look at how even the Lord Left Minister was scared to this extent. If the 9 kings did not move, who would be capable of suppressing Ling Han? Because the gap in their cultivation levels was too large, even when Ling Han had asked Lin Yu and the others to stay behind, and chatted with them for a while, all of them were incredibly reserved, and couldn't even speak clearly. Ling Han did not compel them, either. After giving them some alchemical pills, he allowed them to leave. Ling Han had the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others first stay in an inn, whereas he himself would head to the Scarlet Heaven Academy. With Ling Han's current abilities, there was no one capable of stopping him from in this place. They weren't qualified to discover his presence, and very soon, he arrived at the library. Old Man Shu was just like how he had been, seated with his eyes closed in rest. Chapter 1407 Old Man Shu's Story. Chapter 1407 Old Man Shu's Story. In the past, Ling Han could not tell what part of Old Man Shu was strong, but this time, Ling Han realized that Old Man Shu was definitely in the heavenly body tier. In fact, he was in the high extreme, or at the consummate level, because he could not distinguish his cultivation level at all. Yet, it seemed that the old geezer's cultivation level had been sealed, and he exuded an unusual sense of weakness. "Senior," Ling Han spoke up. "You came back." Old Man Shu did not open his eyes, just as if he did not have much energy. "I have already heard. You killed Zhao Jianbai with a single strike, so your battle prowess should have advanced into the high extreme of the heavenly body tier." Ling Han smiled, and answered, "I went to the Long Light Galaxy, and stayed there for over a dozen years. Since you have also advanced into the heavenly body tier, there is no need for you to address me as senior anymore. Moreover, this old man is also not that old," Old Man Shu said. He obviously said that he wasn't very old, yet still called himself an old man. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "In my heart, senior will always be senior." Old Man Shu involuntarily laughed, and finally opened his eyes. He nodded, and said, "You are not bad. I did not misjudge you. Finally, I have not made a mistake in judgment." Ling Han couldn't help but ask, "Senior has misjudged others before?" "Ho ho, that is natural. I have been here for tens of thousands of years, and have guided a considerable number of juniors as well. However, all of them forgot their debt of gratitude. They achieved much in their cultivation, yet not one of them returned to visit me." Old Man Shu sighed. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Senior might not have to wait any further in future." He took out the highest jade essence heart. The highest jade essence heart. Old Man Shu suddenly jumped up. It was very hard to imagine that a sickly old geezer that seemed like he would be dying any second would suddenly leap 3 feet into the air. Even Ling Han was a little stunned. Old Man Shu briskly grabbed the highest jade essence heart, and at that moment, the aura he exuded was definitely saying that he would kill anyone that got in his way. "Brat, you wait here for one night. I have some words to say to you." Leaving behind these words, Old Man Shu entered into the library. The strange thing was that he actually opened a secret door and entered into the basement. Ling Han did not follow him. He had already told him to wait here, after all. Though he was very curious, and though Old Man Shu's cultivation level had been sealed so he was definitely no match for him, Ling Han still not move at all. How could he be rude to his benefactor? The night passed, and Old Man Shu reappeared. His face wore an expression of great tiredness, but there was even more elation in his expression. He showed a kind of joy and happiness that came directly from the heart. "Come, sit." Old Man Shu brought Ling Han into the library, and pulled out a chair for him. "My name is Shu Ran." Old Man Shu revealed his identity. Shu Ran, the first prodigy to come through opening the sky 300,000 years ago. The freak that had used a mere few thousand years to reach the consummate level of the sun-moon tier? That was not right. At the time, Shu Ran could have come by opening the sky, so he should have already been in the shattering void tier by then. Now, he was in the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, so his lifespan should have reached 40 million years. Going by that calculation, Shu Ran should have been in the prime of his youth, and would continue to be in his prime for at least another 20 million years. Why would he now look so old, as if he was about to die at any moment? No wonder he had previously said that he was not old. He was only over 300,000 years old, and compared to Zhao Jianbai, the left minister, and the others, he was so very much younger. "Ho ho, when I entered into the consummate level of the sun-moon tier, I left the joint peace planet and traveled everywhere to improve," Shu Ran continued. "However, at the time, I did not have a cultivation technique for the heavenly body tier, and continued to stagnate at that level. It was only after 30,000 years that I obtained a divine cultivation technique in an ancient site, and that is the Universal 8 Desolation technique that I taught to you. With its help, I broke through to the heavenly body tier. After that, my path was very smooth and easy, and I obtained a great many fated opportunities. I merely used over a dozen thousand years to reach the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Then, I met the true love of my life. A gentleness shone in the old man's eyes as he sank into his memories. After a long while, he said, "We stayed together and journeyed the world, as happy as if we were deities. However, because of my insistence, we entered into a dangerous ancient site, and the result was she fell prey to a curse, and no cure was effective. I used my own life force to extend her life for her, and looked everywhere for a way to save her. After 10,000 years, I finally found out that only the highest jade essence heart could dispel the curse on her. However, at that time, I had also weakened extremely, and could no longer extend her life for her. I have long heard that in the treasure trove of the imperial palace of the chaotic star's majestic empire, there is a treasure called the 9 Hells ice coffin. If a corpse is placed within, it would not deteriorate eternally, and if a living person was placed within, he would be able to freeze his body. No matter how heavily ill he was, his vitality could still be frozen. Thus, I returned to the joint peace planet, and planned to steal this treasure. The result was that I was apprehended by the Empress. However, when the Empress knew of my encounter, she actually lent the 9 Hells ice coffin to me. But she also locked my cultivation level, and forbade me from leaving. Hence, I could only ask for help from the people here, hoping that they would bring me the highest jade essence heart one day. He talked for a very long time, and finally stopped. Realization dawned on Ling Han. No wonder Shu Ran, who should have been in his prime, had now aged prematurely, and it was also no wonder that such an elite would be detained here. That was because he couldn't possibly leave. This was indeed very much like what Empress Luan Xing would do, proud but at the same time, sympathetic. She did not kill Shu Ran and his woman. Instead, she lent him the 9 Hells ice coffin, and gave Shu Ran a sliver of hope. However, he had broken into her imperial palace, and he still wanted to leave as if nothing had happened. Of course she would not let that happen. Hence, the Empress detained Shu Ran here. If you wanted to save your own woman, you'd have to think of some other way. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then asked, "Has recovered? Her vitality has been greatly damaged, but after a little more time spent on nursing, she would definitely return to her previous condition," Shu Ran answered, smiling. At present, he was in a very good mood. Ling Han nodded, and said, "When the Empress comes out of isolation, I will persuade her to release the seal on you. Furthermore, you would not need the 9 Hells ice coffin any further by now, so you can return it to its owner." Shu Ran was naturally elated, but he immediately shook his head, and said, that Empress Ho is not one who would easily be persuaded. It is best that you don't go, or it would be extremely possible that you would have your cultivation level sealed like me. Who knows, you may be tossed off to become a shepherd even. Ling Han only smiled, and did not say anything more. If Shu Ran saw him holding the hand of the Empress and walked towards him one day, no, if he saw his arm around her waist, would Shu Ran's outlook on life completely crumble to nothing? He was very expectant. He talked with Shu Ran for a while. This prodigy of the previous generation was also considerably interested in the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. If his seal was released by that time, he would set out with Ling Han as well. Ling Han still left the imperial capital. At present, his abilities were too strong. No one would be able to rest easy if he stayed in the imperial capital. Thus, their group set out, and headed towards the Great Ling Empire. A nation could not go one day without its monarch, and he, the ruler, had finally returned. Chapter 1408, Delivering a Coffin. Chapter 1408, Delivering a Coffin. Ling Han had returned, and the whole nation was fired up. Because a rebellion had taken place previously, which had encountered Ling Han's bloody suppression, and only a dozen over years had passed this time, there was naturally not much change in the Great Ling Empire. Everyone was well behaved as his intimidation had not been forgotten yet. Soon after, the news about the battle in the imperial capital spread out, and the citizens of the Great Ling Empire all felt incredibly inspired. Their ruler had become a great elite of the heavenly body tier. Just think, in the past, when Ling Han had come by opening the sky, he was immediately coveted by the other nations around them as they wanted to swallow the Great Ling Empire. In the end, Ling Han had no choice but to humiliatingly travel to the chaotic star's majestic empire, and used himself as a hostage to guarantee the safety of the Great Ling Empire. This was a great humiliation to the whole nation. However, only a mere 20 years had passed, and Ling Han had become a proud and noble great elite from the mere hostage he had been before. This caused everyone to be elated and excited. Who was the one that said they were only lowly commoners from a small world? Who said that they were born to be a lower class? We have our ruler, Wang. Wang, the rock spirit, raced over and spun in circles around Ling Han. Furthermore, it was not just using its 2 legs to run, but had all 4 limbs on the ground. It was not any different from a dog. "Yi, little Han, why do you have a stone dog too?" the old ginseng called out in curiosity. Boom. The rock spirit would only curry favor with Ling Han. How could it possibly allow the old ginseng to behave atrociously in its face? Immediately, it threw a punch over. "Scared your grandpa ginseng to death." The old ginseng hurriedly broke into a run. He was an expert at running, and fighting was not his strength. "Who asked you to have a bad mouth?" Ling Han laughed loudly, and gave a great many unusual stones to the rock spirit. They were produced by the Black Tower, and were highly nutritious for the rock spirit. The rock golem quickly cradled the rocks, and looked left and right repeatedly, acting very cautiously as if it was afraid others would snatch them from him, causing the others to laugh involuntarily. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden, Chen Ruijing, and the others all felt very rueful. How many years has it been since they last set eyes on the lower realm? Yet now it had actually appeared in the immortal realm. After several days of national celebration, the organization of a wedding began. It was not the wedding for Ling Han and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, but rather Ding Ping and Li Ruotong's wedding. She had left her home, and followed Ding Ping for quite some time already. She could not just continue to stay by his side like this without a clearly defined position, right? Hence, Ling Han made the decision for his disciple with a wave of his hand. The present Ling Han was not the hostage he had once been, but rather a great elite of the heavenly body tier. In the battle of the imperial capital, his name was known throughout the whole world, and when the news from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire spread here, proclaiming Ling Han as an elite that had once killed a great elite in the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, his reputation was boosted to its fullest. Now, it was already publicly acknowledged that Ling Han's abilities had reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, and he could not be suppressed unless the few emperors moved out. Ling Han's disciple was now getting married, so who would dare not give him some face? Especially in the few nations nearby. In the past, they had sent envoys previously to force Ling Han to submit to their rule, and now, they were naturally afraid that Ling Han would call them to an accounting. All of them delivered generous gifts. For some of them, even the ruler himself arrived personally, giving Ling Han enough face. To be honest, the fact that they were allowed to attend the wedding was Ling Han giving them face. Otherwise, if a few mere sun-moon tears wanted to join in on the excitement, that would only happen in their dreams. This wedding had even alerted the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, and they sent an envoy to deliver a wedding gift. But when it was opened, there was a very small coffin within. It was naturally impossible that this was a gift to congratulate Ling Han on being promoted and gaining wealth. Instead, this was a warning. Ling Han immediately chased off the envoy, but he did not destroy the coffin. He wanted to keep it at his side. One day, he would bury the Eternity Sky Emperor inside it. Afterwards, a period of peace came to the Great Ling Empire. Ling Han planned to use this little bit of time to greatly improve everyone's abilities. The difficulty of entering into the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy was extraordinarily high. Thus, perhaps only Ding Ping and Zhou Yao had a sliver of a chance among his disciples. Chen Ruijing and the others would not need to think about it, though. His 2 elder brothers would probably also be unlikely to enter. It was unfortunate that there was no sign of the Rain Emperor all this while. If it was him, he definitely would be qualified to enter. Those who wanted to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy had to at least have reached the pinnacle level once. Ling Han's departure this time would definitely last a great many years. Thus, he had to improve the power of the Great Ling Empire as much as possible. Every day, he would be refining alchemical pills, and improving the cultivation levels of all those around him. Kang Shuyuan and Yun Yongwang were also helping, and with Ling Han's careful guidance, their improvement in the path of alchemy was also very fast. They were remarkable alchemists in the first place, though. It seemed like close to 100 years had passed, but for immortals, 100 years was really not that long. Ding Ping and Li Ruotong had only been married for 3 years, and they already had a daughter. She was very adorable, which caused the heavenly phoenix divine maiden to feel very envious. Ling Han took the opportunity to do some work of his own, wanting to push down the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Yet the heavenly phoenix divine maiden got cold feet each and every time, which made Ling Han feel very depressed. What was up with you only lighting the fires, but have no intention of extinguishing the fires that you lit in the first place? However, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was also more embarrassed with every refusal, which let Ling Han know that as long as he would put in a little bit more effort, he would eventually make this beautiful woman truly his. As a man, he should be a bit more shameless and more unembarrassed. He relaxed himself and did not deliberately pursue cultivation, yet the advancement rate of his cultivation level did not slow down in the slightest. Because he had refined the exceptional talent Black Origin pill, though it was not as overwhelming as the Berserk Blood Spirit pill, and did not reach the level of Saint pill among its peers, it was still of great help in the aspect of improving one's cultivation level. Even so, Ling Han judged that he still had a few hundred years to go before he could reach the middle stage of the medium extreme. Though this was already very, very fast, Ling Han was not satisfied with this speed. Indeed, to further improve one's rate of advancing through the cultivation levels, he could only go and seek the true great herbs, ingest one of them, or eat one of the fruits, and he could attain a boost of 1 to 2 minor levels. When he reached the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, he would once again begin to adventure into various dangerous ancient sites. Now, he had to do his duty as a ruler. Was it about time for him to pass on the throne to someone else? Ling Han began to deliberate on this question. He would enter into the celestial realm one day, and the celestial realm could not be entered by opening the sky. Thus, if it was destined that he would leave, he had to seek a person whom he could entrust the Great Ling Empire to as soon as possible. If he was a bit lazier, he could directly merge the Great Ling Empire with the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, but the Empress would definitely enter the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire with him, so he would still have to find an heir. Chu Choshue is not bad. Ling Han thought for half a day. I had best wait until my Empress comes out of isolation, and then discuss it with her further. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. To the majority, there would not be the slightest change in these 20 years. No additional strand of grey hair would grow on their heads, but such a long period of time was enough to expedite the birth of another generation. Ding Ping and Li Ruotong's daughter, Ding Zhizhi, had already grown from the little infant of the past into a slender and elegant young woman, and what made Ling Han feel gratified was that even with the bad influence from the old ginseng, rabbit, and even Jiang Qiaoling, Ding Zhizhi had not been led astray. She was educated and well-balanced, and incredibly gentle and refined. A considerable number of the younger generation of the lower realm in the past had also become parents. Ling Han's cousin, Yu Kaiyu, also had his own children as well. Furthermore, he had wedded 3 beautiful wives in a single go, and they had simultaneously birthed 3 healthy boys, which caused both him and Yu Zhinshan to feel madly overjoyed. Jiu Yao had finally advanced into the Sun-Moon tier, his abilities growing increasingly frightening. Furthermore, he would only obey Ling Han alone, and the killing intent exuded from him would soar sky-high. No one else dared to come too close to him. He had no plans to get married all this time, which caused Ling Han to feel extremely worried. And in this kind of peaceful time, a huge event suddenly happened. The 2 majestic empires of Eternity Sky and Jade Drop sent out their troops respectively, and started a grand-scale invasion of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire. Chapter 1409 Large-Scale Invasion. Chapter 1409 Large-Scale Invasion. The 3 majestic empires had many bordering territories, and thus battles and skirmishes along these shared borders were common and frequent. In fact, skirmishes would break out yearly, even monthly. However, most of these skirmishes were only small-scale conflicts, where only cultivators below the immortal level participated. However, this time was different. Completely different. Both majestic empires were led by a heavenly body tier great elite as they charged into the chaotic star's majestic empire. In just 3 days, they had already seized a large chunk of the chaotic star's majestic empire's land. However, their assault wasn't over yet, and they continued to march toward the imperial capital. By the looks of it, the two majestic empires were determined to take the chaotic star's majestic empire down in one breath. That way, the joint peace planet would return to its previous state of two dominant majestic empires again. Indeed, this was a very good opportunity. Empress Luanxing and the 9 kings were all cultivating in seclusion at this moment, and the only remaining elites of the majestic empire were the 2 ministers, the 7 generals, and Chu Choshue. In fact, there were only 6 generals now. In any case, the fact that the 2 majestic empires had only launched an assault now also showed that they were apprehensive of the chaotic star's majestic empire. Were Empress Luanxing and the 9 kings truly cultivating in seclusion? 30 years had passed, and they were finally unable to contain themselves any longer. They resolutely decided to launch an all-out assault. As long as they conquered the entire chaotic star's majestic empire, Empress Luanxing wouldn't be able to draw on the power of the nation even if she exited seclusion. Meanwhile, it would be a completely different story for the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor. As their territory grew, they would eventually go from intruders to owners. Ling Han immediately ordered everyone to prepare in the hopes of challenging their enemies. However, only 3 days had passed when he received the newest battle report. The 2 majestic empires had increased the scale of their assault. Instead of 1 heavenly body tier elite leading 1 army, there were now 10 heavenly body tier elites leading 10 armies. Moreover, it was rumored that the 2 emperors were personally leading their troops now. Upon receiving this news, Ling Han immediately dispelled any thoughts of leading an army to meet these enemies. Instead, he decided to act alone. After all, the military might of the Great Ling Empire was utterly insignificant compared to the military might of the 2 majestic empires. Once these 2 juggernauts revealed their true strength, they would possess a crushing advantage over any army that the Great Ling Empire could muster. If the enemy only consisted of 1 army, Ling Han could have defeated them simply by slaying their heavenly body tier general. The remaining enemies would all be insignificant pawnshi could easily defeat them by unleashing heaven's might. Now, however, the 2 emperors were personally leading their troops. Although Ling Han had belief in himself, his current battle prowess was only capable of suppressing those at the early stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. However, the 2 emperors were not only at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, but they were even 4-star geniuses. Wherever their army reached was wherever their territory would expand to. Coupled with the power of the nation, how could Ling Han hope to challenge them? Thus, Ling Han's aim was no longer to defeat and expel the invaders. Instead, his aim was merely to protect Empress Luanxing would bring her into the Black Tower and take her away. Once she completed her breakthrough, she would possess battle prowess at the pinnacle level. At that time, she would be the most powerful person on Joint Peace Planet, and perhaps in the entire galaxy. Even if the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor teamed up, their only fate would be defeat at the hands of the Empress. Now, however, Ling Han could only escape from their might. Ling Han had a discussion with the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others, eventually deciding that they should remain to guard the Great Ling Empire. His aim was to sneak someone out, so there was no need for an entire troop of them to head over. In any case, the others wouldn't be able to help him anyway. Although the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others were reluctant, they had no choice but to nod in agreement. Even if they went, they could only sit inside the Black Tower as spectators. There was no time to dawdle, and Ling Han immediately set off. His speed was godly, and it wasn't long before he entered the territory of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. As he ventured deeper and deeper into the majestic empire, he also received more and more information on the current situation of the war. The 2 invading majestic empires were advancing at an astonishing speed, seizing almost half of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire in just a few days' time. Meanwhile, The left and right ministers along with the 6 generals responded by pulling back troops and retreating to the imperial capital. This was a wise decision. After all, which of them could challenge the 2 emperors, even if they fought with no regard for their life? However, it was also because of this decision that the territory of the chaotic star's majestic empire shrunk even more rapidly. Right now, all of the troops were defending the imperial capital. There was also a large formation protecting the imperial capital, and this large formation was controlled by the 9 heavenly body tier elites. This formation was so powerful that perhaps even the 2 emperors couldn't breach its defenses. Several days passed, and Linghan finally arrived before the imperial capital. "Please open the formation and let me in," Linghan shouted toward the top of the city wall. Linghan was undoubtedly a bringer of misfortune. How many heavenly body tier elites had Joint Peace Planet possessed? Yet, 20 years ago, he had killed several of them as if he were merely chopping up vegetables. As such, it was only natural that he was renowned as a ruthless elite. Thus, the guards on the city wall quickly reported his arrival. It wasn't long before 4 heavenly body tier elites appeared atop the city wall. Chu Choshue, the left and right ministers, and Sho Jing. The enemy troops might be upon us at any moment, so what if this person is a spy for the enemy empires? Sho Jing asked. If we open the formation, and this person attacks us from inside, what will we do then? Fucking hell, how can I possibly be a spy? The Empress is my wife, Linghan exclaimed in his mind. However, his relationship with Empress Luan Xing was a private affair between the 2 of them. This was something that no one else was aware of. After all, their relationship also involved the secret of the 9 snake tribe. However, Sho Jing's words weren't complete slander, either. What if Linghan really was a spy? If they took one wrong step at this critical moment, it was very likely that they would suffer a resounding defeat. Right now, their only chance of turning the tables was if Empress Luan Xing successfully advanced to the pinnacle level and exited seclusion. If she did so, she would definitely be more powerful than before. Moreover, she had already been capable of battling against the 2 emperors before, so she would definitely possess a crushing advantage if she were to successfully advance to the pinnacle level. This was the sliver of hope that everyone held, and the reason that they were determined to defend the imperial capital at all costs. They definitely couldn't make any blunder, no matter how small or insignificant it seemed. Right now, even Chu Choshue was wearing a solemn expression. After all, Linghan was only the ruler of a vassal state. Could she truly guarantee his loyalty? Moreover, Linghan was far too powerful. If he were insistent on causing trouble, who could stop him? "Linghan, are you here to provide help?" she asked. "Correct." Linghan replied with a nod. "With us elites standing guard, we can guarantee that the imperial capital won't fall," Chu Choshue said. "You can scout the surroundings and bring us some intelligence. When Her Majesty exits seclusion, you'll naturally be rewarded for your work." Linghan couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. He was being doubted even though he was coming to help his own wife. What in the world? However, regardless of how he tried to explain himself, Chu Choshue and the others remained steadfast in refusing his entry into the imperial capital. Right now, stability was their key strategy. They definitely couldn't afford any slip-ups. While trying to convince them, Linghan had even considered barging his way into the imperial capital. However, whether or not he could breach the formation was a problem. Moreover, what if the 2 majestic empires coincidentally arrived just as he breached the formation? At that time, he would have genuinely become a spy for the enemy empires. Anyhow, since these elites were so confident that the formation could hold back the 2 emperors, Linghan could only choose to believe them. He sat down on some mountain in the distance, ready to act once the armies of the 2 majestic empire arrived below the city walls or even breached them. That was about his wife, so he would rescue her no matter what. The days crept by, and after just half a month, a sea of banners and flags appeared on the horizon, mighty and overbearing. The 2 majestic empires had already seized all of the chaotic star's majestic empire's territory, bar the imperial capital. Their troops were now at the foot of the imperial capital's walls, the might that they exuded formidable and exuberant. Meanwhile, the totem above the imperial capital had already become as dim as could be. An empire's territory, population, and overall strength were all factors in determining the power of the nation. Those who submit will live, and those who resist shall perish, the Eternity Sky Emperor announced. He was dressed in a suit of golden armor, and his severed arm had already regrown. He was radiating with might, and he continued, "Make haste and open the city gates. Otherwise, you shall all perish with this city." You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,